Good evening, people, elites. So, I've been working, doing a lot of readings, tapping into stuff, sending karma, speaking it, feeling it, laying my hands on it. You know, make sure that tower is calm, making sure that the four horsemen um, serve karma to all war, famine, pestilence, and death, as I should, because this is my destiny. This is part of the craft. So, you know, just doing readings and stuff. Um, and I was thinking about that lawyer that they had under the wheel. That was overseeing the wheel back in 1996, 1997. It was a cold case. Went missing, but it was spell work. You know, a hit, murder, fire. Who did it? Military. You know, because they were in the position. They knew that Earth belongs to me. They knew my ancestors owns the Earth. You know, so all these people worrying about these crops and the farmers and the people facilitating things. You know, all these tariffs and things of such. None of these countries own any of the lands, any of the establishments. A lot of people don't want to fully understand that the Catholic Church is actually the handlers for all the other nationality churches, covens, different societies in the making, past, present. But I'm making sure that they're not doing it future tense. Enough is enough with these popes, these hierarchies that think they actually control things. That's why you see all these tornadoes and all these storms, as should be. Why are people still thinking that they could just breathe just the narcissist, ignorant tendencies in the air and think that, okay, cool. Now, it ain't cool. A lot of people are still speaking on my name. And you're going to continue to have war, famine, pestilence, and death. That's how it is. It was several lawyers on that wheel, and then somebody part of the Skulls and Bones Society, you know, um, part of Yale, Harvard. Like I said, this was back in 96, 97, 98, you know, um, and they knew that the adoption that they said I was adopted, it was fraudulent. When they had kidnapped me as a baby, they had this spell work on my looks. So that when they took me from where I was at, over in England, um, they made it to where I wasn't recognizable, you know. But they don't want to tell nobody that the Catholic people, um, the Pope, that was the Pope around 94, 1994, was involved with my kidnapping, with seizing me, with murdering my parents, my grandfather, you know, um, and hiding the body, and writing it off as missing, That's why a lot of people fail to realize a lot of children went missing in the late 70s, early 80s, late 90s, due to the Catholic people. People don't want to talk about the Catholic people. I'm going to talk about y'all asses. Because I deserve to talk about y'all asses, especially when, you know, um, like I said, a fraud adoption, and then my age being wrong. They knew that, you know. Um, they did spell work on that, when they had placed me in this family who were handlers. Um, the reason why my pictures look so different was because they were doing spell work on it. They either made me look very young or very much older. But the thing is, they couldn't, just because they wanted to try to fluctuate the age difference, they knew they couldn't fluctuate it too much. You know, um, the Pope had specifically said, um, yeah, these was people, somebody born in 1952, 1964, somebody's 64 right now, and somebody is 76. Um, that Pope had told them in 1994 that you're going to have to keep doing spell work on her looks because she has an eternal soul, eternal youth. Like, she cannot actually die, And a lot of people wanted to test the theory, theorize to see, okay, well, we can just see. They wanted to murder me to suck my soul out of my body. Like I said in videos when I first started, I was drowned in bathtubs. I was buried, in people's backyards. I was buried in woods. People were taking skin grafts and different things, to try to siphon, you know, um, and they were mixing different components from the Catholic Church that they were getting. You know, um, when I was a child, they knew I couldn't get sick, but they were making me sick, you know, um, through poisoning. But they were getting these different poisons. They would do, like if I get a prescription, something prescribed to me, there's, my medicines go through specific filtering, dispositions. There's different ingredients that's different from other people's medications. It might be a prescription of some Xanax. I'm just throwing it out there. But the ingredients for someone else's Xanax will be different from my ingredients. Due to the simple fact is, um, when they wanted me on medicine, they tried to make it strong to where it made me weak. It made me sick. It made me confused. They tried to place it to where it made me addicted. Addictions and stuff. So they were trying to stunt, you know, um, the inevitable. They wanted to write off um, that I was either gone, not only mentally, but they wanted to make it seem like, okay, we can manipulate her DNA, we can manipulate her blood, we can manipulate the my charts, when she comes to the doctor, especially when I was a child. They were, I had a few surgeries, due to incidences of neglect that had happened. And they were taking different, like I said, skin grabs, some scraping bone marrow, and, you know, they wanted me wearing glasses, to affect my eyesight. They were using different parts of my eyes for other people to be able to get cataract surgeries. But the funny thing about this is, the family I had was living with Edward Maskis and Veronica Maskis. Um, they should have known that something was up with them anyway, because first of all, she's always wearing sunglasses. She couldn't look at the sun. A lot of people didn't think I realized, or it wasn't even, I wouldn't even say naive, but it was necromancy. Like, that's an empty vessel. Like, it's not human, you know. And when I said harvesting, people wanted to harvest my energy because they knew that their lifespan was lessening. You know, um, a lot of people don't realize the earth vibrations that vibrate actually keeps the elevation of your blood pressure, keeps the elevation of you not dropping. Like, when somebody died, they hit the ground thud. It was to keep them gravitating. They weren't balanced, but to keep them upright in a stance where it wouldn't look so obvious to the eyes. You know, um, and also the studio that they had over in Cincinnati, Ohio, on the west side, Westwood, on Harrison Avenue. That studio, they had used my inheritance also for that, to funnel different things, different children, whether it was their nieces, nephews. It's a lot of people, childrens that have died by the hands of these people, and the thing is, the people, the children that I grew up with, they weren't even aware. Even the adults weren't aware. It was a small circle. It wasn't a circle of life, but it was 5 to 7 different churches, that were a part of trafficking. They had did spell work on me to where I ran away. I left the home, but the thing is, they made it to where I was trafficked out. You know, they made it to where I didn't get too far out of Ohio, because they had these different churches, 5 to 7 of them. They placed different like perimeters and barriers around the state of Ohio. You know, so they had different people part of police districts and precincts, people part of different hospitals, so they can stay in the dark. Around 2004, the juvenile courts, those judges who were manipulating their different paperwork, you know, um, sending me to a rehab when I didn't even have any addictions, you know. So the rehab that they sent me to, it was a higher level type of rehab. You know, it was used to be called Scared Straight, you know, but these families had money. You know, they either was in the lower part of Kentucky when we go to their houses near Germantown, Kentucky, or Louisville, or Lexington, or they were in the upper class, Centerville, Beaver Creek, Ohio. These were families, prominent families. I mean, they had money. You know what I'm saying? These motherfuckers was living in, either had big farms where they had lots of land, or they had mansions. So they thought that I wasn't aware. You know, the parents was always, you know, these people's parents were always talking about, oh, I wish you were my child. You're just so loving, just so respectful. You know, but looking back, you know, it's all that gaslighting and stuff. But they were actually getting money uh, to harvest, you know, my energy in there. You know, especially with it being, you know, prominent families who, you know, live in $250,000 houses and five. You know, they live good. You know, these motherfuckers that I truly believe that they really they were in some shady shit, you know, and a lot of their children, you know, we were about the same age. They may be 1 year older, 1 year younger, or the same age as me when I was in there at 14, but a lot of them fell off, you know, due to manipulations and misguidance. You know, a lot of them shut down. A lot of them committed suicide. A lot of them are not even alive right now. You know, they were actually, it was like, it was a plant, you know, to where they traffic children. You know, traffic people, children's emotions, their mental state, their physical state, and then they have them sitting in chairs that you know on a and their feet on a cold floor. It's like it was cold in there. You know, there was no warmth, there was no comfort, and then them actually sacrificing my therapist who was in there. She was 33 years old when she died. You know, they literally sacrificed her because she, you know, things I was telling her, she wanted to report them. So to make her go away, they end up sacrificing. They end up causing a car accident while she was on her way home. You know, and this is not no allegedly. I'm not alleging anything. You know, I'm just speaking what it is. You know, and all because they wanted me out of the way. It wasn't really out of the picture. It was out of the way so they could sit and go on vacation and splurge. Like my charges, though, you know, I was in prison twice. You know, did years. You know, 5 years total. Two the first time, three the second. They paid those judges off. They did spell work to manipulate things, to manipulate the paperwork, to gaslight, to you know, to manipulate the words, you know, to get people to say yes and no, you know. So it was all manipulation, you know, all because these two people wanted to live like pigs, you know, but they swore they were kingpins, you know, but the only pen that they were pent up in was their own trash, their own shit, you know. These are folks that uh shouldn't be around children. They're not trusted around any child, you know. With my own two eyes, you know, you know, my siblings that I were so-called adopted with, that was fraudulent. And they did spell work on them, especially one that, um, Veronica Mars, because she was the one to where she had him molesting me and raping me, and then the cousins and shit. But and then he ended up going away because supposedly he tried to rape and kill her. But that's not even true. It was spell work. She was trying to get him to do something sexual with her. See, a lot of people don't want to go deep. A lot of people want to do a lot of dirt. A lot of people want to do a lot of shit. Then they had to get him out the picture. You know, because it was causing too much. It was breaking layers that they didn't want to be seen. The houses they had bought, with my inheritance. You know, um, it was a write off. It was a trade. Somebody named Michael Ealy that was a real estate person. But the thing is, if you go back to 2000 and see, a lot of this stuff happened in 2004, to be exact. If you go back to that, he didn't have no money. Now you look at him, he's close to, in the upper millions. Having his own little real estate and all this and that. But the thing is, he part of the organization. He was part of it. See, they bought him off. See, a lot of people didn't want me remembering, people's faces, because my memory's good. I will be able to not only capture the scenes of, the times and the places, but the acts. People letting their children watch porn. People, sending their other people's children towards other people's children to molest and rape and bully and do all sorts of things. It was like, okay, let me stick them on this person, to harvest. These people, and their families who they were paying, they weren't even getting paid a good $300, $400, $500. You know, um, and you could just look at it. All these years, they up in projects. They haven't gone nowhere in life. It's people getting repo. People, you can see that the money that they were funneling, it was all going to judges, to lawyers, to people in higher positions in the courts, to keep them free. It was like they were truly penny pinching, but they can't penny pinch no more. I think they've been pinching off of things long enough, especially people's pensions, you know. So yeah, the whole will thing with the lawyer being gone, the Pope thing, these Catholic people, they knew, you know, um, they know about me, my bloodline being part of the Knights of Templars. You know, they know a lot of things. Like I said, that Pope that y'all seeing, that's not a Pope. It's a lizard. And it's really pitiful how people sitting up in these damn churches and shit, and these people congregations looking for someone to lead them down the road. But don't you know that even a road can lead you astray? I mean, That's why you got side roads, you got alleys and shit, and that's what people are being led to. It ain't even a slaughterhouse no more. It's been led straight to an alley where they being dumped, dropped off, And that's when I was kidnapped as a child, it was done in the alley. They made a trade in the alley. They left bodies in alleys, literally. So yeah, thank you.